I'm Adrian.
And I'm Marilyn.
Welcome to A Cult of One, a podcast that explores why toxic relationships, groups, or ideologies are so addictive, why they're so pervasive, and what makes anyone susceptible to a cult of one, or many. Hi, welcome to Cult of One.
Do-do-do.
Today, we're going to be talking about bleep bleep, your ex, your former lover. Why are we doing this? Because I think it's important to Cult of One for listeners to know our story, because it's what prompted us to make this podcast, which is, for me, therapeutic. For you is
Also therapeutic.
Oh, cool.
And it's also interesting to just think more about the human brain and how we're wired to want to connect to people, and how we can so easily slip into things, whether that be people or groups, organizations, religious groups.
Yes.
Out of a need for or want for love. So yeah, it's interesting to talk through those things and hear other people's stories, talk about our own, and hopefully that can help somebody.
Awesome. I think that we should continue with that conversation, with that line of thinking of figuring out the blurred lines of when you like a person to when you start to have limerence, experiencing limerence with that person, or unrequited love, which is you're not being reciprocated back that love and you blocked yourself off. All the trait signs of you're in a cult. Can you pinpoint some experiences of when you started to kind of distance yourself from yourself and get closer to this person solely because he was your God? And I know, let's start with, tell us how you met. What was your allure towards him? Where were you in your life? And then where do you think those lines started becoming blurred?
A little blurry. Yeah. So I was walking out of a relationship that was just not fulfilling. I'll just call it that. It was just kind of like an out of college relationship that seemed nice for the time being, but by no means did I ever see a real future with him. That being said, I did want to find somebody who I could find a real future with. I wanted somebody that lined up with me more in terms of I love working. So I wanted somebody who had that same passion to work, I guess. He also was a nerd. I love me some nerds. He was super smart. He's super smart. He's still alive. He's still a person.
Right.
He's athletic. He was into boxing. He cared about his health, which I enjoy. So there was a lot of those sort of things that were just lining up, that it was just kind of check, check, check. He's got it all. He also was an artist, and I'm as well. So I enjoyed being able to connect there. So yeah, literally in everything, I was just this is a perfect match. And also with that, the way that we met was over a few years in random scenarios. So then it felt even more so the earth is pulling us together. So I got all this stacked up from the jump. Yeah. So in the beginning of seeing him, although I was interested in finding a partner, I wasn't necessarily in a rush to find a partner. So having something casual in the beginning was perfectly fine for me, because at that point I was 23, I think. So I was kind of I got time. I've always imagined myself marrying later, in my 30s. So it didn't bother me to take things slow. And it was clear on his side it was going to be a slow thing.
So there's clarity there. You guys are both communicating.
Ish.
Okay.
I won't say, I think the lack of communication is what told me, okay, this guy's moving slow. So you're reading his mind from the jump. Yeah, from the jump. There wasn't...
Why didn't you want to clarify that? Or did you?
I didn't care to. So I think that's kind of how I got trapped in it from the beginning, was because I was agreeing to it by still seeing him, by not bringing it up, because I didn't care at that moment.
You had an indifference to the situation.
Yes. So it was kind of okay, cool. To me, and I kind of figured he liked me because he was always talking about how, he's so busy. He's got so much on his plate. but he was still making a lot of time for me. Like, we were seeing each other a lot. He was always calling me. Like, we were always on the phone. So I was like, okay, he clearly likes me because he's got so much going on, but like makes time for me. So that was what I thought a good sign.
And a reason,
or at least reassuring
into that closet.
Yeah, like, okay, he likes me. Whatever. So I'll give him my time, I guess. I don't know. When did I start losing myself, though? I mean, that one's tough because I think it's all a fade. You know, you don't really realize it's happening. I mean, I guess it had to have been when I finally figured out, like, he had actually been seeing other people that whole time. So, okay, I know we started dating, like, in the summer. And then by the next, like, by springtime is the first time that we ever talked about feelings. And at that point, I won't say the first time ever. I'm sure there was like driplets here and there, but like the first like real intentional conversation on it. It was the springtime because I just moved into my studio apartment. Because I remember the conversation. I was like laying on the ground. Like there were still like things I needed to unpack, you know, like whatever. So then, he brings up, he's like, so how are you feeling about us? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, honestly, I feel good about it. It's just at this point in time. But I said, at this point in time, I'm only interested in continuing if it's just you and I.
Okay. So that's your first time being like, I'm clear about how I feel about you.
Yeah.
This is what I want. And he's saying, I'm clear how I feel about you. This is what I want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except what his want is vague. So this is the first time I see that. And of course, moving forward, that's always how it will stay, which is his commitment is vague.
And what is vague? Meaning?
So, it's crazy because I look back and I'm like, damn, I really shoved that down. Because I even had the feeling after the conversation, I was like, I don't think I really got a clear yes. However, it was more so a yes. So his response to me saying that, like, I would only be comfortable moving forward. Like, I don't necessarily need a title. I'm not looking to be boyfriend and girlfriend. But like, if I'm going to keep seeing you, I just want, you know, the assurance that it's just the two of us. His response to that was, you know, I just don't know how I feel about committing myself to somebody, but I like you, so okay.
He said nothing.
Exactly.
Well, no.
So at the time...
He did say something.
He did, but of course, to me, I also said something, which is, I'm not moving forward unless if it's just us two. And then here we go, moving forward. So... even in that moment, after we got off the phone, I was like, he didn't really say yes. But then I took that as though, like, I said something very clear and you are agreeing to move forward. We're still seeing each other. So, because in most relationships, that's how my relationships work. If I say something and then you agree and we do that, or you agree to do that, I assume that's what's happening, you know?
I think about the way we communicate. And if you told me, I want to be friends, and I would like that. And I'm like, I don't really want to be friends, but okay. It would be like, let's talk about that. Yeah. You just said you don't want to be friends. So you don't want to be friends.
Yeah. And that's fair. Maybe I was just blinded. Maybe I just like was, I don't know. It happened right there. Regardless, I did shove that down, you know? And I was kind of like, okay, whatever. So I'm here, regardless if I should have been or shouldn't have been. I'm here now thinking it's the two of us. Then September rolls around. So a handful of months later, we're on a camping trip, which again was something to me because he's always talking about his camping trips and how he is, you know, goes by himself. He like made sure that I knew it was a big deal that he's taking me. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm feeling like special. Mm-hmm. Like this guy really likes me. So we're camping. The whole camping trip was trash. There's just like things left and right that kept happening. But it was still fun, whatever, regardless. Last night, we're there. We're sitting at the campfire. And then he was like, so, you know, how are you feeling about us? And now, like, to be honest, like, I'm kind of at like I need more. Like, I feel like at this point, it's kind of like, why are you holding out? Like, what is happening? You know, why don't you want to commit? I was like kind of at my last straw, mm-hmm. you know, of like waiting for like something. Then he said, this is the first time he ever said something. But then he was like, I've never been faithful in a relationship. And like, I don't want to put a label on it because I don't want to cheat on you. But so that was so confusing because he was involved in so much. He did stuff with kids. He ran this like men's group that was specifically talking about masculinity and how to be better men to women. Like, this is who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
So it was so bizarre to hear this come out of his mouth that I was just like silent for a while. Because I was like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It was so confusing. What do you mean you've never been able to stay faithful in a relationship? Never?
When it sounds like when you just painted a really clear picture of his characteristics, the characteristics of this person.
Yeah, so it was just like super shocking. And then it was a couple days once we got back, he called me and then he was like, you know, this is like what did he say? Like an adult conversation or whatever. And then
what were the other ones?
I know. And then he proceeds to tell me that he gave me chlamydia. Yeah. So then, even then, I couldn't, because mind you, at the campgrounds, he said he was never able to be faithful in a relationship. We're not technically in a relationship right now because he's scared to be in a relationship because he doesn't want to cheat on me. My mind still at that point did not go to, oh, so you've been sleeping around this whole time. I literally, in my mind, was thinking like, oh, this girl had to have been from a while ago. Like, sure, we'll get tested just in case. And then it didn't hit me until like a day later that like, no, STDs, STIs are something that people share immediately. And it's like within a short amount of time that they would have had sex. That's how far away I was from even thinking someone could cheat on me. Because I like didn't even I didn't even relate him telling me that this girl might have given him an STI, which means I have one. I wasn't even relating that to like a month ago. So then when I finally realized that, I was just like, oh, this is... But then, of course, I was like, well, technically, we're not together. But then I was like, but technically, you said, you know, it's either both of us or I'm not in this. I was like wrestling with myself at that point. I was gonna break it off. We were like at his apartment. I came up like after, you know, I had to take my meds and everything. And that's the night that he told me he loved me, you know, and was like begging me to stay and saying like he was going to change and, you know, he was going to be better. So, and then that night I literally, it's just funny to think back on it because it's like there's so many signs, but like when you're in it, you believe the words that these people tell you. So
it sounds like there's two things happening from what, like one, deep bias. I relate that to the January 6th insurrection and the security not preparing. Deep bias. Like I can't even, it doesn't even come to my head.
It's not even, it's not a thought.
Yeah.
It's like it's so far away. Because when things happen to you, generally you have like, okay, like options to choose from. Like, I think this is what's going on, right?
From your life experiences.
Yeah, from your life experiences. And that just was not a part of mine. And also, mind you, one of my boundaries that I thought was set so hard was I won't ever be with someone who cheats on me. Like, that is just unacceptable behavior. And then here I go, just swimming in one.
Well, it sounds like too, like, I don't want to use I don't know. Okay. It's around the word dehumanize, but what I'm trying to pull is like people that are cheated on are fundamentally different from me.
Yes. Or I think I also had the idea that it only happened with, like, this is how, like, again, how short-sighted I was about it. I literally just thought it was like, okay, it's in situations where two people like truly don't, like, they fight too much and somebody's like withholding. The woman's like withholding sex from the man or vice versa. That's it. Like, that's really all where my mind went, where it's like someone's either lonely or trying to like get back at somebody else. So then for me, I'm like, I'm not doing anything. So there's nothing to like get back at me. And I'm also giving you sex all the time. So what can be wrong? Like, that's how short-sighted I was about it. Yeah, that wasn't a conceivable thought.
Yeah, and now you're in the clutches of someone who's really been manipulating you.
Yeah.
And also, and I speak for myself too, unwilling to look at the signs that are glaring. Because I want to say, yeah, it's multiple things that gets us there. But the first conversation when he, was like, I don't want to commit, but okay. That's clear. And how you and I...
Well, he didn't say I didn't want to. He said I'm scared to, but okay. Regardless, that's still a sign. I should have listened to it. But it felt more like there's a fear, but I'm going to do it for you. But I mean, I still know that my intuition was telling me that wasn't a yes.
Right.
And then I said, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Slap that to the side.
Well, look how you're already there. You're already fuck it.
Yeah.
You. So it's kind of like you don't stand a chance.
Seriously. Because even in that conversation, I was saying, like, I don't want to do this, not just the two of us. But again, I was not expecting, I still remember I had dinner with my cousin, and this was before I had this conversation. And she was like, are you sure he's like not seeing somebody else? Like, why is he holding off so much? I was like, no, there's just no way. Like, I actually said that out of my own goddamn mouth. I said, because that's what I really felt. Because I was like, this man is so busy. He is so busy. And I spend a lot of time with him. Like, I was staying the night, like 3 nights a week. If we weren't seeing each other, we were on the phone. I was like, when would this man have time? Yeah. It was impossible. He was like working a full-time job. He did his music on the side, and he was starting a business. But he made it work. He found a way to see other people. Let me tell you. And okay, so I feel like a bunch of this was kind of talking about like the beginning of the story of like how we met, how I got wrapped up into it. So like the meat and potatoes on the inside of it. Clearly he cheated a lot, if that wasn't clear. And I caught him in multiple types of way, figuring out he was on dating sites because people would send me his picture and be like, yo, figuring out he's like talking to other girls by like seeing people respond to his, and I hated the feeling of like going to other women's pages and scrolling to see if he ever commented or like what pictures he was liking. And it was always, of course, the half naked ones. And like he would post on like there was one girl that I found out, she was on vacation and he posted like, where's my invite? And she was like, you wouldn't have been able to come anyway because you're always so busy with work. And it's kind of like, that's an intimate thing to know about somebody. And then he posted another one and was like, I forget what he like said on that. But then this other girl like chimed in. And then I think the girls, they were like friends. So I'm like, so you've been seeing this girl a lot, whatever. I end up asking about her. And yeah, he had been like sleeping with her. Which was a whole thing. He ended up blocking me on Instagram because he was like, you don't need to worry about that type of stuff.
What? This is good. I mean, continue.
Well, and just like this, like stop being nosy and like you're causing yourself your own harm. If you're going to look, you're going to find. Which is what an awful thing to say.
Yes.
With truth behind it. And then for me to feel he made me apologize for snooping versus him apologizing for sleeping around. I had to like beg him to block her on Instagram. I think that's actually when he blocked me because I asked him to, because, of course, at that point, he's like, there was a point of like him being like, okay, what can I do to make you feel more comfortable? And it's like cut off communication with her. Don't see her. And it was like a week later. And I saw he still didn't even unfriend her on Instagram. And I was like, I don't want to ask again, but I'm asking again. And that's when he blocked me and was like, stop being nosy. I'm going to do it on my own time. I want to have a conversation with her before I just do that. But it's like, you're literally saying that she doesn't mean anything and it's just whatever. And you're trying to ask me to stay, but then you're upset with me for what?
The attachment that causes anyone to stay in these relationships where you are being disrespected, lied to, gaslit, and emotionally abused, you start to believe what these people say. I mean, start from this story. It was already, I think there's the vulnerability. The vulnerability is what wants you to, make it work. And this makes you go extra time for your friend, your lover, and you're being hurt, harmed. You're not in a good space with this person because they're lying to you, manipulating you. And you sound like you're in pain from this story, right? Like you're like begging someone to tell you the truth while they demonize you for asking for answers.
Yeah. Yeah. And it definitely went in, the whole cycle of abuse of them doing something, you having to apologize. There's the honeymoon phase of like, which I always, especially looking back at it, that honeymoon phase, like I chalk it all up to that's the only way that they know how to apologize without vocally saying it. They're just going to now like, give you gifts and stuff. Like there was one time he did this like cute little scavenger hunt thing for me. And then like there was like, my favorite snacks at the end, which you can always win me over with some snacks.
Right. Popcorn.
It was cute. However, a week before that, I found that like he was like showing me something on his phone and like a screen popped up and it was a dating site specifically for Black people, which made me even feel more weird because he's like dropped in a couple times on like that he's uncomfortable that I'm white, which is not a great feeling when you're trying to be with somebody. Yes. And they're being like, I don't fundamentally want our relationship to work because I don't know what that's going to look like, which is confusing. I understand if people have that confusion, but like don't be with somebody that is then or happy with someone, because he was still not committing. So anyway, it was like you're on a dating site, first of all. And then there's like this extra added layer of like this really feels shitty.
Yes.
And then, of course, when, I just kind of like froze, he didn't, he swept out of it quickly. So like he could have just assumed I didn't see it. And then we had gone downstairs to work out. And like in his apartment building, there's kind of two sections. And he was on one side and there's like a big wall in between. And then there's this other side. So I was on the other side. And I like looked up this dating site to like make sure I saw what I saw. I went on Google Images. Is this actually what I saw? And it was. And then I went back over there and I was like, I have to say something. So then I just like blurted it out. And then he like laughed and he was like, I wasn't actually doing anything. I was just like, bored, whatever. He's like, it's not a thing. Like I barely am ever on it. So that had happened a week before this like cute scavenger hunt. So it's like, it was this constant, like any time that something good happened, it was always after something shitty did. But that was also the time when I would be like, okay, like things can be good. Eventually over the years, because this whole process is like almost a 4-year thing. By the last chunk, I would say probably like year 3, those like repetitive cycles start happening more often. Like in the beginning, it was more like it would kind of be a couple months of goodness and then it would be, like a week of badness and it was like the slow thing. But then it started turning into a point when I was crying every time I left. It was like, this cycle could be happening in a day. Yeah. And that's crazy. And that was such an exhausting time to just be, going from like good to terrible to okay to better, and then to numb. Yeah. So how did you get out of it? How did I get out of it? That was sloppy. I fumbled out. Got some like bruises along.
Is there any perfect way to get out? I think
you just got to figure it out, man.
Yeah.
There was definitely a point when I was like, okay, I need to leave. Like, this doesn't make sense for me. I can no longer like even pretend to see, children with you. I can't pretend to see marriage with you. Like none of this, I can't even make this up anymore, but I still can't leave because I also can't see what I'm like without you because you've made me feel so dependent on you. It was also kind of funny because as I was finally not being able to see a future with him, that's when he started talking about a future with me a lot, which now just makes me feel like that was a manipulative tactic. But, that's when, he started like texting me because this is the conversation that he's, when he went through my phone and he saw of ours and he got super pissed, was because he had texted me just out the blue after a fight talking about how he wants to have my kids and like what they'd be like. And I'm like, what? We were just in a fight. And you also don't talk to me like this. You don't talk about these things. And then I sent that to you because I was like, what? Since when?
I was so mad when he went through our shit because we'd be talking shit. And I'm like, fuck him. That's super private. That was
which is also uncool that night when he did go through my phone. I mean, he was going deep too. Like, he was going through my emails. He was going through literally every app. And he looked manic, which that's also why, when people are like, how would you let him do that? He was strong. Like, I would try to take the phone and he was holding me off. And then also playing the game of like, well, what are you trying to hide then? Which nothing, except for maybe conversations when you text me that you want to have my kids out of nowhere. Yeah, I'm going to send that to my best friend. What are you talking about?
Isolation.
Yeah.
Don't talk to anybody.
So yeah, I didn't let him go through my phone. He went through my phone.
And what you want me to do? Start fighting this man? Fuck out of here.
Because he also loves to talk about and show how good he is at boxing. You think I'm trying to get in there?
No.
And also, like, when we would fight, in person at least, he didn't ever hit me, but by no means did I feel safe. There was moments when it didn't happen often, but even after once, that's enough. He had said on a couple of occasions, like, you're lucky that I love you and I can restrain myself.
Isn't that what Shia LaBeouf said when he was talking to some random people because he was drunk? And he was like, I was going to hit her. Like, she's so lucky.
It's like, I'm lucky that you're not going to hit me. So then, of course, always whenever there is an apology, I know he's broken and I know he has a lot that he needs to work on. I know.
Hurt people.
Yeah. So there's still a part of me that like feels for him. By no means do I think his actions were okay. That's not me like condoning anything he did. But now I can stand on the other side of that. Whereas before I did feel so bad for him and I loved him and I wanted to be there for him because he never had anybody. And then of course I was the only one he confided in. So that really kept me there because then I was always scared, like, well, what's going to happen if he has no one to confide in? He needs somebody. I love him.
Well, and these were what he was saying was lies to you. He was lying to you the whole time. So your want to be there was based on the premise that what he was saying was true, but it wasn't. So again, that just shows another level of manipulation.
I mean, there's part of him that was like when he would tell me about his childhood stuff, like that stuff is true.
No, I'm talking about him saying he has no one to talk to. He was talking to other bitches.
Yeah.
That's what I was talking about.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
So you got out.
So I got out. Oh, yeah. I forgot I was going to talk about that side. So I got out. Thank heavens. We had broken up for real. But not for real because we were still seeing each other. No more title, which we never really used. But, he said, that's what you're asking for. I'm giving it to you. Isn't, does that make you happy enough? What?
You bartering?
Yeah, I don't really. Okay. But yeah, so we were no longer boyfriend and girlfriend and we were free to do as we pleased, but we were still seeing each other. And then I started seeing this other guy who is so sweet, so funny.
So sweet.
I know. I still feel bad about this situation, but it is what it is. So that was helpful though, because I was able to see like, no, here's another man who has his life together, who like is kind, who's funny, who can still make sense for me. My dirty boy is not the only man that exists, but he really made me feel that way, So that was like, I needed that for sure to be able to like prove to myself there are other people out here because, my dirty boy also would consistently say like all men cheat, like regardless if they say it or not, like all men cheat. So I'm kind of like, why would I, if all men do cheat, everything else about him is good? Not actually. But that's what I felt at the time.
Look how much, and when you're in these relationships, your sense of self is typically warped, including the lies that he would tell you, like him saying a man never cheats, which is false. Yeah. That's not an impossibility in this world. But you believed it. And so just sounds like you're also having to get away from all these lies that where you were indoctrinated in, and kind of like come back to life and be like, well, what is the world? Can I talk to other people? Because you're in such a silo.
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah, so that was super helpful, is being able to see in action a man who is not doing these things and who could communicate clearly. I'm glad that like that was something that I knew was wrong, was that, I mean, I couldn't communicate with him because anytime, you know, he would tell me to bring things up when things bothered me and that he wanted to hear that. But then when I would say something, he'd get mad at me and be like, you're always just complaining. Yeah. Like I can't do anything right.
And so that sets you up, right? That sets you up to not want to communicate.
Of course. Because every time I do, I get yelled at.
So then you learn to hold things in.
Absolutely. So yeah, this other guy was helpful. I realized, I mean, especially between our relationship, mine and A's, that we do communicate about everything. So I guess just taking a step back, and I was like really looking at all of my relationships and being like, why are these working and why does this not work? And like communication was the biggest thing. So like the second I stepped in to seeing somebody else, I was extremely honest with this man. Because I was like, I can't do that because I've been so silent for so long. And I don't even know how to function over there. And that means in good and bad. I don't even know how to break up with this man because there's no communication. Like, I don't know how to talk to you without there being an explosion. So I'm glad that that was something that I quickly was like, this needs to be fixed if I'm going to have any good relationship.
You also did a lot of work on yourself. I do think it's important that you found, because he was very kind. Yeah. But I feel like you also were working on yourself, and that's important. Like, fuck having multiple people in the seat. Be like, worry about yourself. And I think when these conversations happen, at least from my perspective, I constantly put it into the context of somebody else. And I guess I won't say that. I also put it on learning about yourself, but I just want to put that in a higher ranking of like, you need to do a lot of thinking, writing, figuring out what the fuck you like, because you often put everything into that other person and your soul is fucking sucked out. Yeah. And even when you do have other things going on, because usually, you know, you are working, or, you know, you're not like you didn't stop everything. You didn't fucking quit your job. You're doing all this while juggling this horrible relationship, but you're not really paying attention to it. And you can, because you're giving so much energy, emotional energy that's being taken out of this toxic relationship. So, you know, like you were saying, you looked at all your relationship and was like, what's working? And I feel like I encourage people to go further. Look at your career, look at your relationship with your family, look at everything that fucking doesn't make sense. Analyze that and take time for yourself. Then you can start really evolving everything in your life.
Definitely. Well, yeah, once you start like pegging these things that do make you happy, once you figure that out in one space, it's easier to, attack these other things in your life to like make sure that what you're doing makes sense for you and is healthy for you. I mean, I feel like both of us did that. Like once we finally got out of a relationship, we applied those same things into our work life. What actually makes sense for us? When do we work best? Yeah. Like what are our passions or what are not our passions? Yeah. You know, and I feel like before we were finally able to get rid of the boys, we started changing our health and like exercising more and eating better. Yep. Going to the gym. Yeah. So all of those things help. They help so much. And if you're confused in one sector of your life, maybe just try to put some focus somewhere else. And like, maybe that's how you learn, you know? Yeah. 100%. Yes. Yeah. Always be on the lookout for ways that you can increase your happiness, and you're less likely to fall into things that then make you unhappy because you have boundaries for yourself. True boundaries. What sparks joy in your life? Because I feel like this pursuit of, you know, happiness in every aspect of your life isn't real. You're gonna have good days and bad days. Some days I fucking wake up and I'm depressed, and some days I'm like, this is the best day ever. And that could change in a day. That is what it is to be a human. But you can find things that spark joy in your life, whether that's going out with your friends or fucking reading a book. You know, it doesn't have to be this, I was fucking horribly unhappy and now I have to like manically be super happy 24/7. Yeah.
there's a medium to that. There's a space that's just for you that you can create for yourself. So.
And I think that's important too. To me, happiness is content, like true contentment with things. It's not necessarily like I'm smiling ear to ear and like laughing all my day. Mm-hmm. But like I feel good about the decisions I'm making. I feel good about how I'm walking throughout my day. Mm-hmm. And I feel good about the work that I do and the time I put in. Mm-hmm. I feel good about the relationships around me. Mm-hmm. I feel good about the things I'm putting into my body.
Yes. So I think we should close today's episode by talking about all the things that spark joy in your life, Marilyn.
That's what I was going to ask you.
This is your episode.
Yeah, but still, this is your platform too.
Okay.
And I want to hear about the things that spark joy for you.
Okay. My family project, speaking to my friends and family, just in general, just talking to them, just off top, my fucking friend. And then speaking to my family, my queen aunts, my amazing uncles for my family project I'm working on that really sparks deep joy in me. Get to know more about my grandmother, my grandfather, and my family lineage, and creating as much agency in my life as possible is what really sparks joy. And I find that if you keep moving forward, you will find that. Whatever you're looking for, you will find. Marilyn?
I feel like that's a huge thing for me as well, agency in my life. I feel like I'm really starting to be able to create that in like even through my relationships, just through the time that I spend, how I spend that time. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm like super grateful now. I'm working at home, doing projects that I really enjoy. And then also my relationships are so healthy. Mm-hmm. You know, all the things that I've learned between talking to you and like really figuring out like what went so wrong with the dirty boy and like how to make sure that that is not repeated in any of my relationships, boyfriend, best friend, family, any of them. Like I feel like within this past year, because we've dove so deep into figuring out again what went wrong, all of my relationships have blossomed because communication, I'm like, I fully understand the importance of it and what happens if it's not there. So that sparks joy.
Oh, and Cult of One.
And Cult of One, man.
Yeah, that shit sparks crazy joy.
Yeah, it feels really good to talk about our own things, talk to other people. We're going to be talking to therapists and psychologists, really understand. Comedians.
Everyday people that are struggling just like me and you. We cultivate a platform that is like a place for therapy for me and you. Yeah. And then also a place to allow other people to learn from our mistakes, which is dope. And
please do.
Hopefully, spark joy in their own life by taking some information that they've learned here and applying it to their everyday life. That's like a dream.
For sure.
All right, cool.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Cult of One. Have a bomb ass day.
Bye.